What's going on, guys? My name is Fusion, and I want to thank you guys for tuning in to Fusion Grows. On today's video, I'm actually going to take you guys along as I sow the first few seeds of the season, and we're actually going to be using the soil that we made on the last video to do that. So if you haven't had a chance to watch that video yet, I suggest you check it out whenever you get a chance. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so of course, the first thing we're going to have to do is establish what seeds we're growing this year. And to be honest with you, because it's so early in the season, I won't be starting these yet. These are more summer crops or late spring crops, and it's just a little bit too cold for these things right now. Alright, so let's kick things off with a plant that a lot of us are familiar with, parsley. Alright, so the specific variety that I'm going to be growing this year is the moss curled variety. Now, this variety says that you should be able to start it indoors between 6 to 8 weeks before your average last frost date. However, because I live in North Carolina and we don't really have harsh winters here, this should be fine for me to start now, even though I'm about 10-11 weeks away from my average first frost date. And the reason why I say that is because right here, it says that moss curled parsley is actually quite cold tolerant. So that should be perfectly fine. Now, there's another thing that we need to decide, and that is what tray are we going to start parsley in? Here I have a 4-cell tray that is about 3 inches deep, and then I have a 6-cell tray that's about 1.5 inches deep. Now, there is one thing that I know about parsley, and that's that parsley actually develops a very deep taproot. With that in mind, that automatically tells me that we cannot use this tray here because it's too shallow. So that leaves us with this 4-cell tray. Alright, so before we sow the actual seed, the first thing that I want to do is soak the seed in some water while we prepare the tray. And the reason why I like to do that is because a lot of times you might not get the proper amount of moisture inside of the seed itself in order for the seed to germinate. So if you go ahead and soak it in some water, you can actually increase your germination rate because the seed will fully soak in with that water, and it will go ahead and sprout a little bit earlier than it would if you're just constantly spraying the seed. Anyway, so here I got, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got about 20 seeds here. So I'm gonna go ahead and plop those in there. And then I want about 10 more. However, because there's so many in here, this is about another 20. So I'll just go ahead and call that good. Plop it in there. And then I'm just gonna give this a little twirl. That way I know that the seeds are soaking. See, as you can see, some of those seeds are actually starting to float to the bottom. I don't need every single seed to go to the bottom, but if I can get most of them to, that would be nice. Alright, so I don't want to make a mess, so I went ahead and grabbed this tray. Alright, so let's go ahead and take some of this soil that we made on our last video and fill up this cell tray. Now, when you're looking at soil, in order to check how much moisture you have in there, you can squeeze it. And if some water starts dripping out, you know you have plenty of moisture in there. But if not, if you squeeze it and it actually stays clumped together, you know you have at least some sort of moisture in there. In my case, it's all crumbling apart. I don't have enough water in there. So I'll keep that in mind for when I transplant the seed. I need to go ahead and water once I do. I'm going to go ahead and squeeze this soil down a bit. And you don't want to compact it too much, but you do want to remove any of the air pockets that you may have in there. Alright, and that should do right there. Alright, so let's look here. It says moss curled parsley is recommended to be planted at a depth of 1/4 inch. So what I'll do is I'll just remove some soil off the top here, plop the seed in, put it back, and then we're good to go. Alright, so as you can see, I went ahead and left a little bit of space here, a little bit more than 1/4 inch. And then we can go ahead and put the seeds in there now. Alright, so what I'm going to do first is carefully remove the water without any of the seeds falling into the soil. First thing I'm going to do is get a few seeds in my hand. Then I'm going to start plopping them in there. So we got 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'll put one right there, one over here. Then I'll do the same thing over here. Then here I've got about, I don't know, about another 4 or 5. I'll take that little bunch right here and I'll spread it out right here. And then I'll take this last little bunch right here of 4. And I'll just plop them right here. 1, 2, 3, then 4. Alright, so I'll keep doing that until I run out of seeds. I'll just keep spreading them out through there. There we go. Somehow we got all the seeds out of this. I'm not gonna lie, that was kind of hard because the seeds are so tiny. But we did it. We got a bunch of seeds spread throughout here at random, and now we're just going to take some soil and cover them up. Now, if I find some big pieces that came from the compost like this, I'm going to just throw that back in the mix because I don't want those big pieces. The roots, since they're seedlings, they're going to have a little bit of a hard time trying to fight through those things. So you want your potting mix, especially if it's for seedlings, to be as fine as possible. You can even screen it out first if you like. There we go. That should do it. Our parsley's planted. Alright, so this next plant here is actually not recommended to be started indoors. You should be directly sowing this straight into the soil if you can. However, I want to see how it works out for us, so to give it the best chance possible, I'm actually going to be using one of these 6-cell trays, and we're just going to see how it goes. Alright, so same thing, I got some water here. We're going to go ahead and soak it. However, this one I'm going to be a little bit more deliberate in how I plant it. So I'm thinking I'm gonna do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 per cell. So that's 5, 10, 15, 20 seeds. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 23, 24, 25. And I just realized I was supposed to be doing 20. Whatever, I got 25. All right, you know the drill. Let's go ahead and fill up this tray with some soil. Then we're gonna go ahead and push the air pockets out of it by pushing in just a little bit. Alright, this looks good to me. We can go ahead and sow this cilantro. But before we do, let's actually take a look at how deep we're supposed to sow it. So for the long-standing cilantro variety, which is the one that I'm going to be growing, it says you should plant it at a seed depth of 1/2 inch. Alright, so now that we're talking about multiple plants, we need to go ahead and start labeling some of them so we don't lose track of what we got going on. So first one we got here, I believe that's the parsley. So let me go ahead and label that real quick. And go ahead and put it on the back too. There we go, parsley. And cilantro, the one that we're about to plant now. Alright, so the plan for cilantro was we were going to do 5 per cell. So I'm just going to do a little hole right here for 1, 2, 4, and 5. There we go. And I think I'm going to use my pen going forward. So 1, 2, oh yeah, that works a lot better. 3, 4, and 5. Alright, so now that we got our holes, let's go ahead and take our seeds and plop them in there. Now these are a lot easier to handle than the parsley seeds. They're a lot bigger. I've heard that with this seed, you're actually supposed to crush it a little bit between your fingers. So we're going to do a little test. We're going to take this cell right here that has the cilantro tag, and we're going to put the partly crushed seeds. And then on these other 3, we're not going to put crushed so we can see what the difference is. And last but not least, 5. Alright, let's go ahead and put the other ones in there without crushing them. There we go, we got all the seeds covered up. I'm just going to take a little bit more soil and spread it out over the top because it did say that it wants up to 1/2 inch depth. Alright, that should do it there. Alright, so we got a couple herbs going. Now it's time to get into the good stuff. So up next, I actually got something that I've tried growing in the past, but I've never had any luck growing, and that is celery. Now apparently celery is supposed to be surface sown, and then you can just sprinkle a little bit of soil on top, or just spread the seeds on the top of the soil and then just gently press them in. I don't know what's the best method to do. However, in today's case, we're actually going to try 2 different things. Number 1, we're going to take this deeper tray and we're going to put a bunch of them in here to grow together. And then I'll probably thin them out a little bit as we go. But I'm also going to take some of these smaller 6-cell trays and I'm going to put 2 or 3 per cell. And then as soon as the best one comes up, the healthiest looking one comes up, I'm going to go ahead and clip all the other 2. So we're just going to be left with 1 plant per cell. I'm interested to see what the results are going to be. If it's going to turn out to be better that the plant grows individually in its own cell, or if it actually prefers companions in a bigger cell. We'll see. Alright, so obviously, first thing we're going to have to do is get some soil in here. So let's go ahead and scoop some up. Alright, here we go. We got our tray full of soil. Now, celery is a tiny little seed. So I don't think I even need to soak it or anything like that. I'm going to just go ahead and surface sow it directly. Man, these are some tiny seeds. Let me show you guys. It's like grains of sand. They're freaking tiny. Look at that compared to my nail. Very, very small. So like I said, with these, I'm trying to do more of a individual plant per sale, but we're gonna start off with a few seeds just in case a few of them don't germinate. Let me get really close here so I can see what I'm doing because these seeds are tiny. There we go. We got about 5 or 6 there. We got another 5 or 6 there. And there we go. This got a bunch of seeds in it. Let's do the same thing for this tray. However, we're not gonna focus on the middle here because unlike this one, we're actually gonna grow a bunch of them together. So I'm just gonna take the seeds like this and just sprinkle them along the top. And then I'm gonna take the seed packet itself and I'm just gonna gently tap it from the bottom so the seeds can fall out. There we go, that's plenty. And I still got quite a bit left too, so that's not too bad. It actually comes with quite a bit per packet. That's nice. I've actually got a lot more seeds that I'm trying to sow too, but because right now is a little bit too early into the season, we're gonna hold off on that. And onions, I'm actually going to run an individual experiment on a few different ways of growing onions. That's gonna be a separate video, so make sure you keep an eye out for that. But right now, I need to go ahead and clear this out because this is gonna be my little greenhouse station for these that we've already sown so far. So give me 1 minute and I'll put you guys right back in here. Alright, let me show you guys what I managed to cook up here. So basically we got our seeds here in this tray, and I've also got a little dome that I'll put over the top of it so that way it can help me maintain the moisture. And I've got the light about a foot away from the seedlings, and I believe I have it set to, yeah, I have it set to 50% intensity. Now that should be fine for now. If I notice that the seedlings are starting to stretch, trying to reach for that light, then I'll turn up the intensity. But at about a foot away, 50% intensity should be just fine. Anyway, let me go ahead and get some water. We're gonna mist these little seeds here, keep them nice and moist, and then we'll check on them in the morning. Now you wanna be kind of gentle when you're doing this. You don't wanna spray it too hard and then disturb the seeds. So you just kinda wanna, gently make sure that it gets the water that it needs. Also, we don't wanna water it too fast. You only wanna spray it a few times and then maybe come back and water it again. Because if you spray it too fast, peat moss, as you know, is hydrophobic when it's dry. So what it'll do is it'll just drain all the way through and it won't actually soak in. So don't water too fast. Alright, so now that we got all the seeds watered in, if you remember, we actually surface sown the celery seeds. So I'm just going to take a little bit of soil and sprinkle it over the top here. And then we'll just go through here and make sure that soil is nice and wet. There we go. Now we just go ahead and cover it up with the dome. Alright, there we have it, guys. This is what we achieved on day 1. As the video progresses, so with our greenhouse here, it's probably going to spread all the way over there. But for now, this is what we're starting off with. I'll check it out in the morning to see if I'm building up condensation inside of the dome. That'll tell me that there's a good amount of humidity in there. And if I notice that the soil is starting to dry out, I'll just spray it. Anyway, that's about it for today. Give me a few seconds and I'll put you guys right back in here. Hey guys, I got sick so I wasn't able to give you guys a proper update. But as you can see, they've been growing pretty well. Everything has emerged from the soil for the most part. And things are starting to take off pretty good. I'm going to give it another week or so and then I'll put you guys right back in here. Alright guys, it has been 4 weeks since we sowed these plants. So I think now is as good a time as any to go through here and thin them out a little bit. So the first thing I'm going to do is take these scissors and I'm going to disinfect them with some Lysol. And if you guys remember, I'm growing celery bunched together and I'm growing another patch of celery where I'm actually going to do 1 per cell. It seems like these 2 didn't make it, but I'm just going to come in here in these 4 cells and I'm going to find the healthiest looking plant, leave it in there, and then cut out all the rest. There we go. Now that I got you guys a little bit closer, you can see that we left these 2 in this cell, and in this one we terminated all the other ones and we only left this plant right there. And last but not least, we're going to come over here and we're going to terminate these right here. Now let's check in on our cilantro. If you remember, we're actually running a little bit of an experiment when it comes to the cilantro. We said, alright, we're going to take a few of the seeds, the ones that have this tag on them, and we're going to crush them a little bit and we're going to put them in there. Turns out, the results speak for itself. I think you're better off just putting the seed in there without crushing it at all. because this is the only cell that had poor germination rate. All right, we also need to come in here and thin them out because a lot of them I planted 2 seeds per hole, so I need to thin them out to the healthiest one. There we go, we thinned out the cilantro to 1 plant per hole. I'm not gonna do that with the parsley or the celery because they're honestly too small right now. Alright, so now that the plants are a little bit bigger, I'm sure they can go ahead and handle their first feed. So I'm gonna come in here with some blood meal and feed a little bit to each cell. And the reason I'm going with blood meal is, for one, it's basically just nitrogen. So the plants are going to be able to take that and develop their foliage. And number two, blood meal actually breaks down extremely fast. It becomes water soluble almost immediately. So I'm going to take some of this and just spread it out over the top of the cells. I'm also going to go ahead and give them some liquid fish fertilizer. And because it's in liquid form, they're going to be able to uptake it instantly. Now, of course, you don't want to give them this stuff straight. You want to put it in some sort of container, and then you want to dilute it with some water. Now let's go ahead and give them this. Alright, there we go. I gave everybody a nice drink. I'm also noticing that the plants are kind of leggy, so I'm going to turn up the intensity of the light, and I'm going to increase the speed of the ceiling fan too, so that way the stems can get stronger. Alright guys, this video is getting a little bit too long, so we're just going to have to go ahead and cut it here. But make sure you tune in to the next episode because we're going to be sowing a lot more plants. I'm going to show you guys a lot more progress as those plants are growing. And there's just going to be a lot more things going on overall. So stay tuned for that. But I want to thank you guys for tuning in to Fusion Grows. I hope you tune in to the next one and have a wonderful day.